everybody, I'm Hayley.
And I'm Kayli.
And today we watched Poor Things.
A little bit of a twist on Frankenstein's story. This time it's Emma Stone with the baby brain, living life to her fullest with God and other people by her side. Who knows what she can accomplish?
What else do you need?
It's mostly sex. That's what she accomplishes. But that's the story.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Did you know like what this movie was about before you went into the theater, or?
I knew that it was some kind of experiment, if you will, that she was kind of like a Frankenstein thing. And that's all that I knew.
Me too. Yeah, I didn't really know much. And then I never really watched the trailer either because I don't do that.
And they show you the whole fucking movie.
This one, it was a very wholesome take on the movie, which I enjoyed. I was like,
well, this one didn't, but a lot of movies do. That's why I don't like to watch them.
What did you think of this movie, Hayley?
I mean, I think that this movie took me on a few journeys. I knew what was gonna fucking happen as soon as she started discovering herself. As soon as it started showing her legs and that black, I was just like, we're gonna get weird, aren't we? And we did. And it got weird, and the apple scene confused me because where was that going?
Literally. Where was it going?
Do you think, now that I'm like reflecting back a little bit, do you think this somehow, and it may not at all, like have to do with maybe, what is the, no, I guess it really wouldn't. I'm thinking like Adam and Eve. So I'm trying to think.
I could see it.
If like some of this has some references. I mean, obviously the dad / doctor / creator's name is God. Yeah. So it's very obvious. You have Adam, like the pushover in the garden. Not pushover, but you know what I'm saying? Like
maybe they're both Adam. Maybe I don't know what Mark Ruffalo's character's name is in the movie. Windelbottom? I don't know.
Who? Margaret?
Who?
Who'd you say?
Margaret? Now you made me forget what his name was. Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo. I thought you said Margaret.
Girl.
Sorry. Continue.
I don't know what his name is, but maybe him and Candle. That's
William
what I'm
Dafoe?
called. No. Girl, what are you saying?
What are you saying? Oh, you mean the curly hair guy?
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
No.
And then the other guy's name is Candle, the curly hair guy that she's supposed to get married to.
Yes, okay.
And then Willem Dafoe's character is God.
Yes.
So God, Candle, and then Mark Ruffalo. I don't know his name. It's like Windelbottom.
They said it enough.
It's like Weatherbottom, Dalton, Weatherbottom. I don't know. It's something like that.
His character.
But maybe I think they could both be seen as Adam. Because like you said, Candle was a pushover. Kind of like Adam was like, oh, I was led astray. But that's like the whole thing with Mark Ruffalo's character. He's like, she's a demon woman who's like tempting me, blah, blah, blah. And that's what a lot of people say about Eve. They're like, you know.
She's the temptress.
Right. And she fucked everything up.
She was just looking for knowledge.
She was just trying to live her life.
Wanted
live
to
her truth.
Have a little apple action.
As we all do. Not that apple action.
I was literally like, how is this working right now?
I was like, where are we going?
Literally, where is it going?
Where is, maybe I should leave.
But yes, I don't know if there's a little bit of that in there, but I mean, it did take me on some journeys. I think that I started liking it as the movie went on. I think in the beginning, I was kind of like, all right. Sometimes when there are artsy movies sometimes I feel like they're trying a little hard. Yeah. So I feel like maybe kind of in the first half, it was giving me a lot of like artsy, the black and white, the pushing the envelope. So I think I was a little bit kind of like, okay, all right, we get it. You're cool.
We're done.
We're done. I was like, we're cool.
Yeah, we're cool.
But then as it went along, I think I appreciated her character development, especially when she started, once we got out of that like very uncomfortable stage of I think the movie, and then she kind of started coming into herself a little bit. So I think I actually liked the movie. I couldn't imagine what you thought.
I hated this one, bro.
Hated the movie?
I hated it. Let me talk about the things I did like first.
Okay.
Let's start on a positive note. Okay. I think it looked beautiful. Yes. I loved how unique it was shot. I loved the costume designs. I really even enjoyed, usually I'm like anti-pretentious, artsy fartsy, like The Lighthouse can go to hell. Fuck that movie. I still won't get.
Wow.
But with this one, like the black and white to the color, but it was like all the vivid color of like, a new world, and then it goes to more like muted tones, and then it goes back into like a black and white but still in color kind of theme to match like her growth, which I can appreciate. I appreciate the art. I think where I was stuck with and left uncomfortable with is the whole idea of her having a child's brain and then having sex.
Yes.
And and that's why I wasn't able to let that go, even though she progressed and she got better.
Older?
She got wiser.
Yeah.
But she progressed, but it still was like that weird, uncomfortable feeling of like, well, what's going on with Mark Ruffalo's character? Like, is he going to get punished? Not really. I mean, he did go to an insane asylum for 2 seconds.
Yeah, he just like admitted himself in and then just left.
He's like, this was fun. I needed a little break. Let's fuck this woman's life up. That's what he did. And he kind of did in a bit. And like, I feel like a lot of people see this movie, they call it, this is my Barbie. Like, I love like the feminism of it all, the woman empowerment of it all. And that's where I'm a little lost.
I don't think, okay. And I see what you're saying 100% because that's how I felt. Like me and James were literally in there. And once we found out the truth, we were like,
okay,
are we all here?
Okay, good.
So what I think, I had to kind of move that because you're right. That the literal sense that a baby brain was in a grown woman, that yes. I think the main idea of it, I don't necessarily like how they set up the beginning of the plot there. I think what they were trying to basically portray is what if you had a blank slate.
Yes.
And a woman was able to kind of be a, what do they call it? Tabula rasa, blank slate, go into the world and kind of discover herself.
Yeah. Which I can appreciate that story.
Correct.
For sure.
I do think that by using a literal baby brain, it did make the story very uncomfortable because you are no, I absolutely agree with you here.
Thank you.
I had to then go, okay, I think the movie is trying not to make that like a point. I think it was supposed to be like, haha, but it was more like,
ew.
Okay. So I think I would have appreciated it if she, like, you can still have a similar kind of a storyline, if you will, but I do think that maybe had they had her, but is there a way that she would be a blank slate where it would be appropriate? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, let's say she wasn't a baby brain, but he literally
or she had
just
some kind of accident with her brain, like he said.
An accident, or maybe he literally did a Frankenstein, put a bunch of parts together,
Just
and then created something brand new. Would that have made it better?
So
you know what I mean?
I think, okay, would it have made it better? No, because there's like this whole trope of like born sexy yesterday, and that's what a lot of people said about this movie, and how they're like, well, it subverts it because like she doesn't stay naive, like she grows and blah 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 blah. But before, like, you know, we get too much further, I understand that her brain was maturing faster than per usual.
We hope, I guess.
But I'm not going to say she was a toddler when she had her first sexual experience with Mark Ruffalo's character, but she was not grown.
She wasn't 18.
Thank you. Okay, because people were like, well, she was like using big words. Mama, have you ever been around a child? If you say big words around them, they're going to mimic those words. Yeah. He was like, how do you know what empirical science is, but you don't know what a banana is? I'm like, exactly.
That was also way past their first
encounter was too.
Anyway. But so, like your point.
She's grown. She didn't even call it sex. She called it frantically jumping. And so I feel like people are getting a little weirdly defensive over that one point. They're like, well, her brain does mature. I'm like, no, Mama, he was doing something he wasn't really supposed to without knowing. I don't know if he didn't know that it was a baby brain, but he knew that she was different.
He knew that she did not have the mental capacity to make informed, educated, proper decisions, which is why he saw her and was attracted to her.
And was going to take advantage of her.
And then wanted to, take advantage of her, which he did.
Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm just like uncomfortable. So, but I did not realize that this was based on a book. Did you know that?
I did know that it was based on a book. I don't know how long ago it was written.
I don't know either. I'll put
it in here. Guess we could find out. Hold on.
You can
we have the internets.
But I do know that the author was alive enough in 2011 because the director, he met with the author and was like, hey, I want to make your book into a movie. So like he was able to hang out with him.
1992.
But from what I understand of the book, I did not read the book before recording this. But from what I understand is that there was a whole year where God and her traveled the world. So if her brain does progress quickly, a year is plenty of time for her to still act a little funky, sure, but for her to be an adult.
If at the rate that she was going, that we're assuming is going very fast. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like
that would have made more sense.
It would have made me more comfortable with this movie, or if we just didn't have like the first sex part when she was acting like a child, and then we had the whole brothel scene where she was working as a sex worker. Like, we could experience sex. I'm not saying I'm a prude. Well, maybe, but but I just feel like I was like, why? That's really what it is. It's like, why make this so uncomfortable when it really didn't have to be? According to the source material, according to my research, I could be wrong. But if that's the case where her brain does progress faster and there was a year before any of this happened, then why not do that? Why literally say in one scene she has a baby brain, the next scene she's gone? Fucking. You're weird.
Frantic jumping.
Girl.
That's why I think at some point I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make this more about a story about if somebody of just a self-discovery. I don't even want to say coming of age because
not coming of age. And then self-discovery, Hayley, come on, do better. Another innuendo. Shame on you.
But you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, okay, because it seemed like she went through kind of the stages of she wants to break out. She wants to discover the world. She kind of gets involved. Her world's very small.
Yep.
Everything's very happy. Then she understands that life isn't very happy all the time. Mm-hmm. And then she goes into more of the sadness. And then she realizes she can go into an area where she doesn't feel anything. So I think that I enjoyed the journey of like the ideas of what she was going through and kind of who she was. But I do agree the baby brain was very, very disturbing. And not them doing it again. They said this was so successful.
They said, we miss Bella. Time. Bring her back.
But they made another girl.
Maybe better.
Also, did they find another pregnant woman who
That's what
passed away?
I'm like, how come y'all added a whole other woman but didn't talk about anything? They're like, we need another body. And so whose brain is that?
I don't even know at this point. But yes, so that was just, I will say, very weird because I was like, okay, well, it's kind of supposed to be funny, but it's kind of not funny because I'm getting, she's like 5 or 6 and doing all, and the reason why she kind of is able to, I mean, is it because she's a woman and has a woman body that she is like discovering more? I mean, I know obviously when you're little, you start discovering yourself physically, like, you know, just in general, like your arms and everything. But it did seem like they were very, very quick to start doing a lot of the sexual stuff. I'm like, is it supposed to be because her woman body is fully grown and developed? And so there's more of a tendency to discover that because it's more matured.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I'm like, what would make a younger mind want to go? Like, I see a little bit of like, oh, that feels nice or whatever, but they just like took it very far and it was very graphic. And that's the only thing that I was like, to your point, it's kind of like, what was the point? What was the point of some of that? If we're not going to make her, if the story is that's a baby's brain, like giving Benjamin Button. Have you ever seen Benjamin Button?
I have not.
Well, there is a scene where Benjamin Button is older, well, young but old.
Yeah, yeah.
But everybody thinks he's old, but he has the mind
of a
child. And so he ends up somewhere with some men and they basically bring him to a brothel and he gets to have fun time, if you will. And he literally in the scene, he's like, like, this is fun. You know what I mean? So it was giving me Benjamin Button. But even that scene, I was like, oh my gosh, but it's supposed to be like funny.
And it's
you know what I mean? And I was just like he was like, let's go again. And I was like,
and that's what this was giving for sure. This is what this is giving for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't understand the point of doing this. Like, I understand that sex is a very important part of our lives because we wouldn't be here without sex. And like, of course, people do it all the time. But it's like, why make it in a way that it's going to make people uncomfortable?
So it definitely was a little bit of, look, we can be so shocking. Look how graphic. So I don't know if that was more for a shock value because I don't think it necessarily added anything. To your point.
Yeah.
That's why in the beginning that's why I think I enjoyed the ending a little bit more because I feel like she was maturing and I could see her thought processes and I enjoyed seeing her develop more. But I will say that first half was extremely just like uncomfortable.
I'm glad that you feel this
Unless
way.
that was the point.
But then it's also like, why? Because then you don't say anything about it. And I don't know, because like it didn't really say anything about sex work either. Like it wasn't like a thing for or against sex work. Same with this. There was no for or against like with her being not mentally developed enough to have sex. So I don't know if it's like kind of giving the vibe of Bella, where she doesn't look at things as like a moral way. It's more of an experiment. Like, what's the result of this? If I do this, what happens if I do this?
Yes.
So I don't know if that's what kind of vibe we were supposed to be going for in this film.
I think so.
But it also is just like, why? Okay, we have one scene of her having sex with Mark Ruffalo in the very beginning, but why was that so many? Why did we have to keep going?
See it there and there and there.
So
and
then
everywhere.
it's like, now you're like pushing it in our face, but for what? For who?
I think it was supposed to be funny.
And it wasn't. If anything, I was looking at Tristan like, the fuck is this, dude? I'm like, bro, I'm sorry that I took you to see this. I felt so bad. I'm like, we've seen so many awful movies together. But also, like, I talked to one of my friends because I knew that she watched this movie too. And I was just like, I don't really understand the point of these sex scenes. And she was like, well, I think it's to show that women, whenever they are younger, like they get sexualized at a young age, like with the first part.
Which makes sense.
And I can understand it. And that could be what it is. But then what's the message behind it? Is it just showing us this? Because, bitch, I already know. So it's like, what was the point of you showing us this if you're not going to really say anything about it? And like, I understand you don't have to be explicit, but there was like, I guess if you want to say the only kind of thing or message was like Mark Ruffalo's character became more and more of a joke and an asshole. And that's the message. It's like, oh, people who are like this are stupid. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Or was it also he could not control? But it's odd because it's like he was interested in her for her innocence, but then became obsessed with her because she started to grow from that and didn't want him anymore.
Yeah.
So I also don't really know what that's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because if the message is these certain men like prey young women, then what was the point of his character slowly going into this madness of she's discovering herself and doesn't need me anymore and she's not doing what I want. I'm more in love with her than I was before.
Yeah, because it was kind of giving where he was like, I'm over this. Like, you're not as fun anymore when she started reading.
Which is what I thought was going to happen.
It was going to be the end of it. Yes. But then he was like obsessed and went crazy over her. So then it's like, okay.
So I didn't know what that message was either. Because, if we're going to do the whole she's being preyed on by men.
Right.
It didn't seem like that's what they were really trying to hone in on because they didn't really wrap that part up. He just kept being obsessed no matter what.
It was just a joke at that point. And so it's like, okay, so what was the point? It was, but then it also was just like, okay, cool. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I just didn't care for it.
He kept coming back. I was like, why is he still here?
Now he's at the wedding.
Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I will say, I don't think it needed to be. I mean, I absolutely understand sexual exploration. If you're going to be talking about something like that, like, but I don't think that I need to see it very explicitly.
I agree.
And then if we are going to touch on the topic of like, this is a child, that's where it needs to be very, like, I think it's funny because Ha Hey Hoo Hoo, the actress is not a child, or like, the body's not a child, but I think that had they done another reason for her to be more blank slated, it
where it wasn't
a little bit better. But you're right, it is very off-putting when I'm trying to wrap my brain around the fact that this is, I don't even know what age this child is anymore. Because I'm like, where are we at? I just never knew where we're at mentally, and I'm like, I just don't know when I can breathe.
Right.
Like sometime after the brothel, I'm like, okay, I think she's 17, 18. She may be 20. I don't know.
Yeah,
so
exactly. It's just something off-putting about her acting like a kid right after the sex scenes. Like she was at the dinner spitting food out and talking about, I'm going to go punch that baby.
They need to be very specific. If we're going to
do that,
if we're going to do
this,
tell
me each
age,
bitch.
Yes, I need to see like a little count at the bottom to tell me so I can feel a little bit better. But I mean, but even then, like I said, I don't know if it would be better if the blank slate was there because
there's lots of movies like that where people are taken advantage of as, like I was saying, the born sexy trope. I know there's like female examples, but the ones I can think of, there's Rocky Horror Picture Show, and like
I've seen that one.
Dr. Frankenfurter makes a man literally to have sex with him the day that he just popped out into existence. So he doesn't know what the fuck's going on, and you're taking advantage of him.
Yeah.
Same with like Edward Scissorhands. Like he was created, popped out, and people are sexualizing him, trying to mess with him. And so it's like there is a common theme, and it's weird. And like I don't know why back in the day, whenever I first watched Rocky Horror Picture Show and Edward Scissorhands, I was like a little uncomfy, but it didn't last that long. So
not as long as this one.
But this one, I was like, okay, yeah, it's making me very uncomfortable. So uncomfortable, I couldn't even enjoy the rest of the movie.
Have you seen The Sixth Element, or what is it, the fifth element?
The Fifth Element. No, but I've seen a lot of people talk about that movie too.
Oh my gosh, I watched that movie because somebody was raving about it, and I watched it. And when I tell you, I was like, what in the... I was very not disturbed, but literally, it's like a girl. She's like the sixth element or fifth element. I don't remember.
I think it's fifth.
Is it 5?
Yeah.
Whatever. She's like the fifth element. She's an element needed to like put different pieces together to create a powerful whatever. She's like the embodiment of like a relic or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so when she comes in her human form, she's like doesn't really speak, or she does speak a language, but it's like the old language of like whenever the relic was created, and she is very childlike because she just got here. She's like whatever. And when I tell you, I was shook because the main character, so she falls.
Isn't it Bruce Willis?
Yes. So she like falls into his car or something. They end up together. And when he realizes that people are chasing her and he's like kind of saving her, like he's at the house of like his friend trying to figure out what to do. And his friend is gone for some reason. She's sleeping on the couch and he crawls on top of her and he like leans in and starts like kissing her. And she's like, what? And he's like, sorry. And I was so...
We need to call Olivia Benson because no fucking way.
We woo.
Indeed.
I was just like, wait, she's like a child, but of course she's in like a little skimpy little like tube top because it's like reliquware and it's tore and it's like, it's like the native people's tore up mini two-piece, and her hair is all like disheveled and like the short pixie cut, and then she's just like... But I'm like, mentally, she's like this pure, innocent. Yes. But I mean, he didn't go anywhere with that. But
thank God.
I was like, the only reason why he's helping her is because he thinks she's hot.
Yeah.
That was the premise of the movie.
Yep.
Because he saw her and like you could tell it was that moment where he was like, finding her attractive. And then so he decides to help her. Had a big burly man dropped in his car. He would have pulled over and dumped him so fast.
No free rides.
Yeah. No, but he like helped her out because the bad guys are trying to get her, and then he literally he gets on top of her and tries to be sexual towards her. And at this point she's like clearly confused, clearly scared, clearly doesn't speak his language. And this is literally what he does. And I was so confused. Yeah. And I remember I brought it up to somebody and I could tell they were like brushing it off, and I'm like, okay, but why?
What was the point?
What was
we didn't have to have
point?
that part in the movie where he's on top of her, crawling around, trying to kiss her.
No, that's when I was like, I'm very uncomfortable right now because she clearly is like confused, also being chased by bad people, and the first thing he wants to do
is have sex with her.
He's just tingling.
He's like, ooh.
Sit down. What is wrong with you? She's like literally a child. Like they have not spoken in one word. She doesn't even know who you are, what you're talking about. You're trying to get on top of her because they don't speak the language. Like she slowly starts like picking up words because childlike mess, and I'm just like, this is really creepy.
But anyways, back to this.
But yes, it was very interesting. But I did like kind of like you said how everything was like an experiment and that's why I don't want to say that because I know you said some people were like, oh, this is women empowerment. I'm not getting women empowerment. Yeah, just because it's a woman as the main character. Yeah, to me doesn't really give women empowerment because I don't think that she was empowered until, if we're going to say that, until she finally could think for herself, but not really because, I mean, she did go through those life experiences, but she also just grew up. Mm-hmm. It's not like she just was like a sexually free, like we said, she was a child in the brain. I'm not going to call that women empowerment. Maybe towards the end when she's sitting back in the same place she was at, was like, cool, I run this place now, and my ex-husband / daddy is a goat. As a goat. And she was like, this is life. But I don't want to say it's a women empowerment thing, 'cause I just don't think that was the angle. I don't think anything she did was empowering, but I also don't think it was not empowering. I think it was just an experiment. She's like, literally, what would happen? Yeah. What would happen? Like, what if somebody who has a blank slate goes to the world and has no concept of society, has no concept of anything on their mind? So I get why she has to be more grown, because obviously if it was like a true toddler, they would be treated as a toddler. So not a fan of her being a baby in the mind. But if you have a person who can go out in the world and just kind of start, and they just do this, do that. What is this? What is that? Well, I don't understand why we can't do that. That doesn't make sense. So to me, it wasn't women empowerment just because it's women.
Yeah. And
doing
like
stuff.
I think there's a big discussion about autonomy as well in this movie, because she doesn't have any autonomy or agency at all. She, Victoria, jumped off a bridge, wanted to obviously die, didn't have a choice in coming back. And then she's also, I guess, her daughter. This is such an awful concept to think about. Like, you're my mom, but I'm you, but it's awful. But so she doesn't have any autonomy there. She's literally trapped in that house with God and that other man, and she's betrothed to be his wife, and she really doesn't understand that whole concept either, and then runs off with man. and is under his not control, but under his wing for a big part of it. So then Harry comes along and they're talking and they're chatting, and he's like, why do you even stay with him? She's like, I don't know, I always think it's going to get better. Sounds like a lot of women we know, but
listen, he told me, he said, we'll be fine.
We'll be good. And then she goes and she has to be a part of the sex work in the brothel because she's like, I don't have any money and I like to have sex, so I guess I'll do.
She said 1 + 1
equals 4. But even there, she didn't really have the agency that she wanted. She controlled what she could, like the rest of us do. And then at the end, like, she was also like, I guess that's the biggest part where she like fought against the man, is like her husband taking her, or her ex-husband taking her back and trying to be like, I'm going to do surgery on you to remove your clitoris so you don't like sex anymore.
So that's what got us here in the first place.
He said that damn clitoris. So, but I just feel like there was the lack of autonomy in this movie and a lack of authority of yourself. I just don't see how that equals women's liberation or any kind of freedom like that.
That's why I don't think that this was women empowerment, because nothing about that journey. I did not see women empowerment. I think it's because she was like having sex and like didn't care. And then people just equate that to being women empowerment.
It's a very narrow view of feminism.
Well, and in this instance, it's not. Like, if that is your motto and you're taking, like, but to your point, her setup was not set up to where these were just all of her true choices. Like, she was kind of guided and thrown along the way. I mean, even the brothel lady was kind of not lying to her, but she was manipulating her to come on in. So it's not even like she understood the gravity of what was going on and then chose to do it anyway because that's what she wants to do. No, she was just like slowly being kind of manipulated and learning slowly along the way, and then finally again realizing, okay, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. I mean, she didn't even end up in the brothel. Yeah, let's not even, you know what I mean? Like, she was like, that was not for me. I don't, maybe somebody was like, well, her choice to leave is empowerment. I don't know, but I do not think that that's what this movie was trying to give at all.
I don't get that vibe either. I don't really get it either. And for people to be like, this is my Barbie, I'm like, girl, you like to be manipulated? You might need to go to therapy.
Why would this be your Barbie?
Because
I get it. There's two naive characters, kind of, but that.
And then they're, I don't know.
Not the same thing.
I just don't get it. I really don't. I don't see this as a woman's liberation film. And also, like, for her to, they're like, well, she doesn't care what men have to say, or she doesn't want to follow their rules. And also, like, she doesn't like listen to the patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. You want to know why that is the case? Because she wasn't raised to. So like, because in God's house, not God, but little God,
little G,
little dude. It was all about experiments. Like, obviously he was tortured while he was a little kid, which is a lot going on with that man. He also needed therapy.
I know. I was like, that's a whole side story about how he even ended up being as decent as he was.
Honestly,
given his circumstances,
because he could have been a real I mean, he is a monster for doing what he did, but he could have been a lot worse. But yeah, it's just like, in his home, he didn't have anything besides like, let's do an experiment. Let's scientifically test this shit out. What happens if I do this? What happens if I do that? It was all about breaking the bounds of what your reality is. And that's what she was saying. She's like, if someone tells you the rules, then you change them into those are the new rules. And then the new rules become the old rules, blah, 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 blah. So it's just like, it doesn't seem very liberating to me because she wasn't even under those constraints to begin with. Her old life was, but she wasn't. So like, how am I supposed to feel any kind of liberation from this woman if she never even subscribed to those things in the first place?
Yeah, there's nothing to overcome. There's nothing to liberate from.
Besides, I guess you can say the men, but then like also she didn't give a shit about the men.
She didn't really care about the women either, except for her friend at the end.
I don't think she cares about anything, to be honest. No. I don't think she gives a shit. And to me, that also doesn't show like growth in the way that I wanted it to. It was more like she still remained a child at heart the entire time.
And that's the point.
Aw.
A childlike wonder and curiosity.
And being selfish.
I think she cared at the end, though. She brought her friend on board.
She did.
She's presumably going to raise the next her kind of daughter in a way. The other girl that was, girl is. Struggling, and she kind of, got her revenge a little bit. So I think at the end, she's kind of seen the world, saw it, got it, and now she's kind of back. But I mean, I don't think she'll be the same person her dad was, or aka her god.
She's not showing like the best promise.
I mean, at least hers was a case of revenge. She's not like running around. Like, I think she would not do what her dad did to her. because she was kind of like a little bit upset that he kind of lied to her, but she wasn't. And I could tell she didn't like that idea because it confused her, but she didn't spiral. It wasn't like doing anything crazy. She was like, okay. And then when she came back, she saw the other girl and was kind of like, what are y'all doing? So I kind of thought that she did have some growth at the end, because it felt like she was kind of understanding things, knowing that was probably not the best route to take, but that's all her dad knew. Because her dad's dad clearly was experimenting on him his whole life. So he didn't have any concept of certain things either. But it was her going through those things, and maybe even her different experiences, like going through the brothel and spending time with women on a different level, and seeing maybe the good and the bad. I mean, you had the madam who was teaching her some stuff too. And she was kind of, not a fan of that,
What the madam was also saying is like, you need the good parts and the bad parts in order to have a life, which is what this movie was also about. She went from being, and that's the other thing about like the childlike part, like I understand she was a lot about pleasure and wanting to feel good, like that's why she ate so much and that's why she did whatever she wanted to do, and then she grew into like being the adult where she's thinking philosophically and seeing those poor people down there that were dying and all sorts of stuff. So like I see how at the end she did become a whole, but to me it seemed like a whole U-turn to kind of the beginning, and the fact that like she just did the same thing that her dad did. And so like I think what happens whenever as parents, you want to do better, right? You want your kids to have better. So yes, he was tortured as a little kid, and so he kind of tortures things in return, but in a kinder way. And I think it's just getting diluted more and more it goes. So this new Bella 2.0, or maybe worse, negative 2.0, when she grows up, maybe she'll do something very similar as well, but just a little kinder. But to me, it's just like whenever it showed her husband being a goat, like I feel like that's honestly worse than anything else has happened.
But at least she was doing it in revenge.
She was.
Because her dad didn't do it out of anything other than curiosity.
Right.
But he was going to take off her hootie hot.
It's true.
So actually, and she saw how he was treating all his workers.
I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. I'm just saying as a character, you're kind of reverting back to what you know.
How's she reverting?
What do you mean?
I mean, I guess she's reverting back to what she knows, but like, what's bad about that?
Well, when it comes to human experience.
No, but he deserved it, Kaylee.
Okay.
But he's going to experiment on her.
Okay. Let's say that was the only time that she did it. But we've seen her progress to things where she had sex, or she was touching herself, and then she had sex with one man. And then she's like, we can open up the doors and see what happens more. Who's to say this won't lead to further experimentations?
We'll never know, Kaylee.
We won't.
You're making inferences.
Yeah, based off of the evidence the movie gave me.
Oh.
But I will say one more thing about this feminism stuff. Because I hate women. But in the book, from what I understand, it's told kind of like in a found footage type of way, where her husband, Candle, I don't know his name, Max, I think, he's writing about all of these experiences. Like the bulk of the book is through his perspective of what she did, provided from like the letters she wrote and like the conversations he had with her and what God had with her and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end, Bella's like, most of this shit isn't even true. Like, I don't have a baby brain. He's over here getting inspired by Frankenstein. Like, this isn't even real. And she's like, and like some of those things did happen, but not in the way that he thought. Like, I just went to God because I wanted my life to be changed. Like, I didn't like the life I was living, blah, 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 blah. But then at the very end, when she passes away, they do an autopsy on her, and her brain is younger than her body. So then it's like, you don't know who to believe. You don't know what to believe. You don't know what experiences are true, blah, 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 blah. And I think that this movie was a very like narrow lens of what feminism is. They're like, you know what feminism is? Sex.
I was gonna say what women having sex and just touching themselves.
Exactly. And so that's why in the book it kind of makes sense, because it's literally through the man's eyes of like what he thinks were the most important parts. And it's like, if she did work at a brothel, if she did have sex with that man, those things were probably not as big for her. You know what I mean? Like they were important experiences, but that wasn't like her entirety as a person. And like I wish we would have learned more about Bella through other experiences that didn't have anything to do with sex. Like I was we had that in the beginning, we had it in the end.
It was a reoccurring thing.
It was too much, honestly. Yeah. Like I was hoping, I kind of wanted her to run off with Harry after the boat, and like
because he never hit on her or anything. They were just they were like intellectual beings.
Exactly.
They should have run away.
And then who knows what kind of adventure she would have gone on through that, like learning more about his side of like being a cynic and like seeing that perspective a little bit more before she became her whole person. To me, it just like kind of wrapped up a little quickly, where she was like, well, this is who I am now. And it's like, girl, all you did was have sex. There's so much more to life than having sex and getting revenge.
She's on a boat. She saw some poor people.
She got kidnapped.
Yeah, that is true. Because even it was like, you know, a lot of sex in the beginning, a lot of sex, and then some more sex. And then even at the end, her ex-husband is like, I'm going to cut off your clitoris. And she was like, you're right. We were never getting away.
She's like, I get why I jumped off a bridge.
She's like, it's coming back to me. Yeah, but that is true, because sometimes it's almost like, sometimes when they do the coming of age, it's always, you know, it's like that hone in on the sex part. So it was a lot of her life. Now, are they saying that that is the case for her because of the world she was in, and a naive woman is going to find themselves in those positions? I don't know. Or are they just overly obsessed with sex for no reason? Because it's funny, it's shocking, it's sex, it's a woman, it's this, you know? But I would be interested. And they might be going off the book's events, which is totally true. But you're right. If it was given a little bit more of her female perspective rather than like all these men and what the men are to her, because it was like the first guy was like a cute innocent, like he still loved her, but you know, this and that. Like the only guy really in it that was a character that she was kind of really talking to was Harry, who didn't seem to be giving off any type of sexual advances at all. But it is true, I think it was definitely surrounded by like relationships and sex, and this is a woman discovering herself, and I'm like, true, but let's turn to the right, let's turn to our left. There's female friendships, there's drive, there's other desires besides those things. But yeah, you're right, it was very sex centered. So I'm not sure if there was a meaning behind that, like they're trying to make another point, but I don't know if I got that. So maybe they were just like shocking woman coming of age, nakedness, sexiness.
I hope you wanted to see some titties.
Yes. Or two. And so, yeah, and everything else.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad we were able to have this conversation, because I feel like a lot of this movie is so loved. Everybody fucking is eating this shit up. They love it so much. And every time I see a dissenting opinion, the person is like, well, you just don't get art. I'm like, okay, no, how about this? Art art is subjective, and you get it how you fucking get it. And there are so many people who are like, oh, I walked out after 25 minutes, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, babes, you just don't get it. It's like, no, they got it for them. It's their perspective. That's what art does. It evokes a reaction in you. Just because they didn't like the fucking film doesn't mean they didn't get the fucking film. Mm-hmm. They got it. They got it for them.
Yeah.
And you got a different experience. I didn't see it as the moving philosophical feminist movement we all needed.
I just can't imagine anyone getting feminist out of this.
You would be surprised. There's a lot of people who do.
I'm so sorry. If anything, it was just.
Yeah.
She just like I said, just because it's a woman does not inherently make it a women empowerment.
Are you sure? It was a woman having sex, Hayley. How do you know it's a feminist?
For fun, because she wanted to. But okay, I do have a question about her past life, because of course she does get a little bit curious, because that's why she goes with her ex-husband.
Yes.
/ dad. And I think she was like, well, let me find out where I've come from. Mm-hmm. And then she realizes, I don't like it here. Was she evil in her past life? Mm-hmm. So they were both evil together. Mm-hmm. And he was like,
that's the vibe I'm getting.
Is that it? Because I couldn't tell if she was abused and that's why she jumped off the bridge. Because I couldn't tell, because the maid was acting like she was just a horrific person. But then she was like, well, I see why I left. So I don't know if she was also just running from her crazy husband, or if she was really evil. I didn't get that. I wasn't sure, even if it matters that much, but
I guess it doesn't, but I don't know.
I was just curious.
I just think, I guess it depends on how you take it. So this isn't Bella Baxter's life, so it doesn't have to be feminist, but I think it's just very interesting that we didn't learn about her backstory from her, like figuring it out, like through maybe like journals or something. Mm-hmm. She heard about it through a man. a man was telling her story.
Should have pieced it together and figured out what the truth was.
And it's just like, it wasn't. This is all very man-centric, and I just don't understand how this has anything to do with women's rights.
Her caretaker was just like, whore. Just hated her ass.
She said, the whore is back. And then she taught the other girl to be like, Belle, whore, or whatever.
Yeah. So, I don't know. There weren't that many.
It wasn't giving feminist to me.
Not to me, but it doesn't have to.
And where's the intersectionality of it all?
Oh.
We're in 2024. I need the class, the race, all of it. Not just the sex.
You were missing.
In both ways. Gender and sex. It needs to be more.
I guess so. And it's just like I said, because I think that a big part of women empowerment has been hijacked by sexual liberation, which I'm not disagreeing with on a certain level, but
I think it's important.
And
let me just say that before I get fucking called
yes,
out. It's important.
But I think it is important because it is something that has been used extremely negatively for years and years and years. So I accept that. But I don't want to give so much importance to it in the sense of like it is now becoming women's identity.
Exactly.
I think it's important for women to take control of, and obviously given history, a lot of it has been taken, whatever. But I think that because it's such a big thing that it starts to mix in with the identity of women.
Yep.
When it's just a subset of the many things that we are.
Yep.
So not only are women sexual beings, we're all these other things too. Not only do we have relationships with men, some women have relationships with other women, and then some women have platonic friendships with men and women, and it just goes and goes and goes.
Yep.
And
there's a whole spectrum of things.
It's an entire thing. So I think when it is kind of just boiled up to she's just being very sexually fluid and free, to me that's not feminism. It's just a piece of her figuring something out, but it's not, to me, I'm not empowered at all. Like you said, I feel bad. She literally was just being groomed the whole time, and we're like, well, she was just like still doing it though. I'm like, that is not correct.
Exactly.
But, you know what, if people want to tear us up for that, that's fine.
I will say, I did want to say one thing about my movie experience.
Like your theater experience? Yes.
We went to Alamo Drafthouse, which was fun.
Now you're eating.
Yeah. Wrong movie to fucking eat at, bitch.
Don't eat in this movie.
It was awful.
Don't go with your parents.
Don't go with anybody you would be uncomfortable watching sex scenes with.
Even with James, I was like...
Nah. When I tell you, maybe I am a prude, but whenever sex was, I was like, let me look at my fries. These fries got very interesting.
Not you getting hungry during those scenes.
Ravenous.
Not your appetite increasing.
But there was like a lot of jokes in this movie. There was one person in particular who laughed very loud.
There was a couple laughers.
It was very intense. But there was one moment where the madam was talking to Bella, and she was talking about sex. And she was like, it was whenever Bella was like, why can't we just pick our own partners? And she was like, well, sometimes men, they enjoy it when you don't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Why did this man only fucking laughter in the theater? Crickets afterwards, bitch. I'm like, someone called the fucking FBI. We got him, ladies, because ain't no fucking way.
I know exactly what part you're talking about too.
Oh yes,
because she's finally breaking it to her that, hey, like, no, like this is the way. This is how we do it here. And some men like that, and so it's supposed to be a serious moment. And he goes, ha ha ha,
belly bursting laughter coming from the back of the room.
I know if he was with a woman, she was just.
I would grounds for divorce.
In her seat, she was so embarrassed. There were a couple times where there were some people laughing, and I was like, I don't think that was a joke.
But yeah, me and Tristan were like, what the fuck was that man on?
Like, all right, time to go. The movie's already weird enough. The audience is just
movie just stopped right then and there. It's like, whoever laughed, get the fuck out.
The police are at the bottom of the escort you out. Ask you a couple questions.
But yes, let's go ahead and talk about, unless you have anything else to say about this movie.
I will say, I think when a movie is different and artsy, which I think it was, I know I did a lot of this, but I feel like sometimes it just gets kind of construed with like the best of the best. Did I think it was well shot? Yes. Did I think it was well acted? Yes. I thought it was generally like a good movie, like when you're just looking at it. So I mean, I guess I can get it in that instance of being a good movie, but in terms of like the message, or if there even is one, the whole thing's one big experiment. Who knows? But when you do peel off the layers a little bit and go, hey, okay, if they were trying to go this route, which we think they might have, it did look like there were some things that are a little bit superficial still left, still a little bit of the male gaze, without then telling us it is a male gaze and trying to give us a message on that. And then it just was very, very sexually driven, which to me can get very boring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I get very turned off, and not just because it's a turn off. Not even because it's just like I am a prude, sex, but I feel like if sex is gonna be a part of whatever story you're telling, at some point it needs to make sense.
Yeah,
I feel like the look how far we can push the envelope gets on my nerves just a little bit, because now I feel like it's for shock value and not really to add anything to the story.
I agree.
There's no reason why I need to see PPs flying everywhere, or her titi tatas.
But I guess you ready for ratings?
Yeah, let's give a rating.
Yeah. Me?
Yeah.
Me first?
Yeah, you go first.
Ooh, y'all ain't gonna like this one.
I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5.
Ooh, even lower. I'm giving this a 1. This was not for me.
No, I thought you were going to give it a 2.
I know. I said I was going to give it even lower.
Oh, you said even lower. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I know you're not giving it a 2. I'm giving it a 1.
Okay.
But I give it a 1 out of 5. It just wasn't for me at all. Point blank, period. I understand the message behind it. I understand where people were going and why they liked it. But it wasn't for me. I give it a 1 really for the art design and the creativity behind it.
Not it barely hanging on with a point at all.
It, bitch. Because the rest of the plot line, fuck it. I don't give a damn about it. It was just, I don't care. Bella Baxter ain't for me. This movie ain't for me. But I'm not saying it was a bad movie. I think it was beautifully done. And obviously they gave a shit about it. He's been working on it since 2011, bitch. Oh, they like painted like some of the set designs and
oh no, very beautiful. The whimsical world that they were kind of creating.
The costumes, the dance scene was cool. Like all of it, I think it's beautiful to look at. You watch it, girl. You in for a ride.
When you bite into it.
That is just what do you give this one?
I'm gonna give it a.
Ooh, the sigh.
Not a sigh. I am gonna give it. I'll say 3.
Okay.
Out of 5. Like I said, I agree with you. I think it was well done. I think that it was acted very well. You can tell, like I said, they put a lot of effort into it.
Absolutely.
With the camera angles and this and that. And but overall, I thought it was well done. I think once we started going towards the end, I kind of appreciated her journey a little bit more. I appreciated the conversation she was having. I like the direction that she was kind of going with her mind of just, trying to figure out the world around her. So that's what I'll give that. And I thought that was well done because I can't say it's a bad movie. I just can't do that.
I agree.
What I can say is I do agree with Kayli, which is why it's not going to be higher than a 3, which I think in theory it should be. Like had it, I think it done better. But I do think that it did center around sex quite a bit to the point where it did kind of dilute her character a bit into just being a sexual being of sexual discovery. I mean, I know they touched on like class differences a little bit. But, she was like, oh, my God, I feel bad. I give him money. On to the next place. And then, did not. I feel like in the brothel, that's when she really could have connected with women a little bit more. She did get a friend who kind of talked to her a little bit. But there were so many women there that probably had so many other experiences that she might not be familiar with. I thought we could have dove into those a little bit.
Are we not going to talk about how this is kind of like the white woman cosplaying as a poor person for like a good 20 minutes?
Oh, for sure. I mean, she was literally very privileged because her father obviously had money. The guy she ran away with had money. So I thought it was going to get interesting once she didn't. But she was kind of like, I'm only here because I want to. I'm done. And then to me, didn't really dive into the women that might have had to have been there or were put in that position through something else. Yep. Maybe as a kid, their mom sold them off or whatever. They found themselves in a position. Like she was doing it for fun. She was trying the world for fun, but not everybody gets that opportunity. Right. Not everybody can run around with money and hope and a whim. You know what I mean? So I wish it was a little bit more of that in there, of her discovering others as well and more of the women relationships. So that's why I just can't give it a little bit more than that. Yeah. And also the whole thing. I am suspending the child thing because this movie does not work. That's why I had to lift it off and throw it away. Yeah. I made my own. She's just, you know what? She's a metaphor for a blank slate. That's what I had to do because I'm so sorry. I can appreciate that. Yes, sure. Which is what you have to do because if you truly sit there and maybe they weren't trying to make it as literal. They were like, oh, a baby's a new thing. But when, I'm sorry, like I said, when Mark Ruffalo was feeling all on her and she was like barely forming sentences, even if she didn't have a newborn brain, this is an absolute no. Clearly there is a difference in mental capacity here. But anyway, so you just suspend that. But yeah, I think those are my overall thoughts. But we'll see if it is up for Best Picture.
It is.
Okay.
And I think for like a lot of other stuff too, like acting and I think maybe like costume and stuff like that too. But if you like things that are just so beautiful to look at, but maybe you just don't like what's under the surface, you can visit us at Instagram at Hayley and Kayli. We also have a TikTok at Hayley and Kayli as well, where we talk about other things like nonsense and such. But what else do we have, Hayley?
We have a YouTube channel if you want to see all this beauty in real life. Well, over technological.
Don't see us in real life.
No, don't do that. You can watch us on our YouTube channel at Hayley and Kayli. We post these videos as well as other absolute nonsense just for fun because we can. We also have a email address. You can email us at presspodcast@gmail.com. Tell us all the movies you review, your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. And if you want to listen to this, you can listen anywhere you find your favorite podcasts.
Absolutely. So, at Pressed Podcast.
Yes.
But let us know what you thought about this one down below. Is this your favorite of 2023? Do you think it deserves Best Picture award? I feel like I have yet to see my favorite of 2023 based off of these Oscar nominations.
Yeah,
It's not giving.
No.
But yes, so next time we will be talking about, we had a slight change of plans. So our next video is actually going to be us talking about the Oscar nominations for Best Picture, and we're going to be ranking all 10 of them. But yes, that's what we'll be watching next time. So check it out. So we got to talk about it together.